Well. Hello, and welcome back. This is my favorite, time of the month and hour of the month, and it is our recurring show. We've kind of bailed a little bit on a couple of months, but life happened, as we say, and so we've missed, I think 3 months worth of content and shows. But it's only 1 hour a month, and Dr. Heim is busy. He's been all over the world, so and things happen, of course, and we couldn't make it. But we're back. New year, first month, and we're in action. So it's really been a miss. But hey, Doctor, welcome to the show back again. This is our fifth season. Season
Thank you
five.
very much, Hurricane. That's exciting. I'm glad that we're back because it's a continuation, but it's a new start as well. Every year kind of does that, but life goes on, life happens, and we get through it.
Well, listen, this whole show is about life, right? It's about how to cope with things that happen in life. And so I think everything that happens in life affects us physically and mentally, specifically. That's your world. And that's what this is our mental health time. So we have questions, we answer them. So folks, if you're joining us, you can interact with us. You can send your questions. Check the ticker on the bottom, on the bottom there. You can even actually ask to join us if you wanted to come live, as long as you keep it, PG-13 and clean, and we good. we'll have you on, of course. And of course, if not, you can catch the replays and plenty of those, out there, and you can catch them, and you can still interact with us, send us your questions, and Dr. Am is always ready to answer them. And he does his thing, and then
Yes.
really. Now, one thing, of course, he is in the future right now, so just as a nice little thing, because he is in Australia, the land down under, as I always state, and with a beautiful bridge behind him. That's a Sydney view there, so can't get better than that. And so yeah, so we're ready. Doctor, are we ready for the first question of
We're ready for the first question, Hurricane. Let's get it
so
rolling.
I'm gonna put it up on the screen, and then we can go from there. So I hear a lot about how nature is soothing and beneficial, as well as the importance of being out and about. But what is the psychological need or connection between nature and a human psyche? Michelle, UK.
So, Michelle's from the UK. Thank you for your question, Michelle. Okay, so first of all, we have evidence to show that we do need our connection with nature. And the evidence shows that we all need about an afternoon, 2 really good hours in solid nature. And by solid nature, I mean not just a walk in a park, but in a forest, at a beach, going to a mountain, sitting by a lake, and rediscovering our connection with nature. But Michelle's question actually goes to what is our connection with nature? Why do we need connection with nature? And I suppose what I want to bring up is that we are actually nature. We are part of nature. We started in nature, and I suppose what we have done in our civilization is move away to nature. So we take our connection with nature for granted. Okay, so the question is not why do we need a connection with nature, but why aren't we in nature? And it's got to do with our civilization, our urbanization, our need to expand our growth, or as psychologist Abraham Maslow said, to realize and self-actualize our individual creativity and need to express ourselves. And because of that, we start to move away from nature and move into all the things that we have invented, discovered, done, and created. In that, however, something happens. It's like, all right, so I can think about this musically. When you get a musical instrument like a flute, it works by nature. It works by moving air currents in a pipe. But now we have synthesizers that can synthesize the sound of a flute, but it's made completely electronically. And so what we lose through all of that is not only a connection with nature, but, oh my gosh, I'm going to start to sound very strange if I say natural energies, but it's just like we need the breath and the air that we breathe, so we need wholesomeness in all that we do.
Ooh, well, hold on. First of all, I want to say hi to Caroline. She's on our Instagram feed right now. And then
That's right. You heard that one. Yep.
I heard that reverb, and then I see her. So, yeah, and by the way, I want to just claim that. So we are live on YouTube as well as on Instagram. So again, please do join us and join the discussion and catch the live answers. Now, Doctor, I hear you, and here's a problem. Here's a dilemma that I see. Right, I grew
Yeah.
up in a world where we were more out than in, and
Yeah.
now everybody is more in than out.
Yeah.
Even when they're out, they're not really out. I mean, I see people outdoors, but they're not outdoors. They're in their machine or whatever, phone and or tablet or something. They're really not in the enjoying the beauty of nature and getting uh, involved with it. I mean, I think there are people that are outdoor, doing their trekking and whatever, and trails and maybe biking, but that's I think a small percentage. I mean, even as kids, we spend most of our days out playing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I mean, there's people that are they love to be earthing and walking, barefoot and stuff like that. But that's a small percentage. There's even critics about that. But where did we go wrong? I mean, I know civilization happens. I know we're evolving, but is that really the right thing for us to do? I mean, are we missing on something big for us?
Okay. First of all, Hurricane, I like the way that you put it, that we're more in than out rather than out than in. Okay. And I suppose that's what I wanted to say, that we belong in nature. We are part of nature. It is where we belong, so to speak, and we evolved from nature. Now, the interesting thing is that we can evolve, and we have evolved to interact with whatever we have invented and are doing. All our screen technologies, our brains are going to evolve towards that. So the question as to where we've gone wrong, I'm not sure we've gone wrong, Hurricane, because our life expectancies are much larger than they were thousands of years ago and tens of thousands of years ago. Perhaps where we've gone wrong is we've lost that connection. But exactly to articulate what that connection is, that's what's difficulty. There is something that happens when you go on a walk and that you're out in nature, but to articulate exactly what it is, that's actually very difficult. But we're doing well when we look at how we've dragged people out of poverty, 1 billion people over the last 25 years out of poverty. So that's good. That means we're all surviving. But when we survive, we humans want to do more. We want to thrive, and that means thriving individually. And perhaps we've lost a bit of the connection with each other in thriving individually. But I don't think we've gone wrong, Hurricane. We've got to make a few adjustments, all right? But we haven't gone wrong.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Well, so again, I think it all comes down to balance, right? We need to kind of balance things. And so again, I mean, the question, it's I think it's about for one, and we need to maybe get. I mean, your opinion is so valuable because I think you hit it right there. I mean, on the head there. But because fact is, it is something we're doing good, but we can do better.
Yeah.
Certainly, we missed some of the old stuff, but that's part of civilization and progress and so on and so forth. But as long as we kind of find a median grounds or medium ground or middle ground, as they say, it would work for us. So again, for folks, I mean, to me, Michelle, or anyone watching or listening, for me personally, I do take the time to be in nature, and that's just me. But and again, a lot of the stuff we do in the network and the iHealth channel, the radio, is to talk about fitness, oneness, and stuff. And there's a lot of movement that we talk about, emphasis. But from a mental state, I think when you're in nature, you just get better. I mean, you feel better, you oxygenate better, your body works, and then your functions are doing good. So then everything else is good. I think even your I don't know if your hormones are going to be affected, but I do know your dopamine and all the stuff gets a little excitement, right? I mean, am I wrong with that, Doctor? Or?
Okay, no, you're quite right about that. So let's get into the science and let's get into the brain. Okay,
I love
so
that.
what we know about the science, and we've known that since 1888, since we had a researcher by the name of Emil Durkheim, that in the Industrial Revolution, all the urbanization, when we went away from the countryside and came into the cities, that an unintended side effect of all of that is we get alienated from each other. Our life becomes more fast-paced. We lose that natural connection of loving to be with each other, and people start feeling alone. And this is very strange for human beings because we are social creatures. We actually need each other. We actually want each other. And strange thing is, in nature, we are with each other and we help each other a whole lot more. But these days, we get into nature to get away from each other, right? Because it's this thing called stress. And the strange thing about stress is nature is able to arouse the parasympathetic nervous system. And I'm starting to get into the brain, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
Mm.
It cultivates the rest and digest of our nervous system. So this is the nervous system that we have when we we're eating, we are being with friends, we are relaxing, we are enjoying a bit of love and romance. All of that is parasympathetic nervous system, and all of that is activated when we are out in nature. It tends not to be activated when we're in a big city. When we're in a big city like New Jersey or New York, it's our sympathetic nervous system, our fright and flight responses that are activated. And that's what alienates us from each other. So I think we're getting closer to what Michelle wanted to know. Why is nature good for you? And I suppose the short answer is it activates the more relaxing side of our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest.
All right. Well, thank you, Doc. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about, when we had the pandemic,
Yeah,
that played a big role. I mean, people being able to go out and do certain things, I mean, all the
yeah.
lockdown, all the stress, a lot of people kind of coped and survived better, because of their connection with nature and kind of they had the time to do it. So I think that was also a plus because I mean, one of the biggest excuses today nowadays is I don't have time. I mean, time is,
That's right.
a commodity that we're kind of short of because it just it's going away. Every single is gone, right? And so we have to manage it better. I think that's what we need to be, just to find the time, which there is a way to do that, and certainly just balance it out and get back in some of that nature business.
And this is one of the big things that came out of the studies from the pandemic. Media-wise, we tend to concentrate on the negatives of how people's relationships were in trouble because they were closer. We couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. But studies have shown that a lot of people have actually rediscovered their relationship. They've rediscovered the beauty of time. They've actually spent time at home during lockdowns and played cards or board games or, goodness sake, talk to each other. In fact, a lot of businesses now have this combination of at office time and at home time, because it is good for us as humans to have a bit more time. So rather than going at a fast, frantic pace, we can slow down and we can enjoy each other. So the pandemic has actually rekindled our value of relationships and just time spent with each other.
All right. Well, Doctor, I think we've covered quite a bit about nature. So, folks, listen. The bottom line is we need it. Let's do it. Michelle, thank you so much for the question, and hope that we have you've received the right answer. I mean, it is the right. I mean, I think there is a right answer. That's what Doctor just gave us. I think for everyone else watching and listening, it's just I think it's a boost to ourselves, and hopefully we can follow this advice and just connect back and figure out that middle ground, and let's do it.
Yeah, so I'll just summarize to sort of say it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It increases serotonin, and if you can get out there with other people to enjoy nature together without any technology, that'll boost beta endorphins, and you'll be feeling really good.
Well, on that note, Doc, is there a frequency that we need, like a minimum frequency that we need to do this for? I mean, is it a once a week?
Yep.
Is it?
Yep, the study shows more than 2 hours a week. We need our 2 to 4 hours a week out there in nature, fully engaged without technology. It's called the green effect. So I talk about beaches and forests, but if you can't get there, then even going to a park and interacting with the trees and the grass there, that's all good.
Well, thank you, because I was going to ask. In the big cities, I mean, it's kind of rare to have the forests, but we do have parks, and some of these are like
Yeah.
New York City. You got Central Park. You got in Brooklyn I forgot the name of the park, but there's parks all over the state and the cities. So there's always a place where you can hang out and do things. But hey, listen, thank you, Doc, for breaking it down and the science as well and the impact of it. So there you have it. All right. So before we go to the next question, again, a reminder: we are live, so join our discussion. We are on YouTube as well as on Instagram. So join us, and you can join us live, literally, and come on if you wanted to be on the show. Just hit that stream link and join us and ask live in person. Now, I know this is always a taboo. A lot of people don't want to be on, but why not, right? All right, we're going to move to the second question, Doctor. Is that okay?
That's fine with me.
All right, this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, a lot of interesting questions, but all right. All right, let me just put it up here. There's a missing part. I'm going to bring it as well. So, why are there more followers than leaders in the world, and why do people follow others and support them and their agendas, regardless of whether they are great or not? There have been many leaders that let's see, destroyed nations and caused wars and chaos. Jose, I'm assuming New Mexico.
New Mexico. Jose from New Mexico. What a wonderful question. The followers and leaders question.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I told you.
Okay, so the first thing to point out is that there's always going to be more followers than leaders, mainly by definition. If you're leading, that means that you have a certain amount of expertise and you're, in a sense, higher up on a hierarchy, and you have people who are following you. It's like influencers at the moment in our social media. They have thousands and thousands, and they're going sometimes for millions of followers. We don't have millions of followers, millions of leaders looking for one or two followers. Okay, so part of the definition of being a leader is that you are up on the hierarchy and you have people who are looking to move towards you. But there's a second part of your question, Jose, that's really difficult. Why do people follow leaders that are not good for us? All right. So the first thing we have to say is who decides what's good or not? And unfortunately, none of us have an actual answer to be able to say, this is what I think is good. This is why I like to follow the scientists, if you like, because they dedicate their lives to finding what the truth is, and they use that truth to serve the goodness of humanity. So let's look at all the scientists in the Manhattan Project that were part of developing the atomic bomb for the Second World War. They were actually very keen to make sure that that information got into the right hands. So they weren't just looking at knowledge indiscriminately. They wanted to do it for good, because if it ended up with the other side, there's a possibility that all of us would not be here now, right? So even in science, which tries to be value free, there's this idea of looking for good. But Jose, how do you decide who's a good leader? And the only way that you decide is by looking at your values, what you believe is right in this world, and looking for people who've got more insight into what you believe is right in this world. And there's a strange thing, and I'm looking at the philosophy of Daniel Dennett at the moment, who basically says, look, all of us actually believe that it's good to be good, that it's the right thing to do the right thing. And we might argue as to whether we're following a God that exists outside of us, or our common humanity, or if this is just some random decision that we've made. But there's actually nobody out there sort of saying it's the right thing to be bad. Unfortunately, leaders now know how to manipulate our psychology. There's been a lot of research in this, and they know what we follow. So we follow images, we follow slogans, we follow black and white messages, we follow things that sound shocking, and it grabs us immediately. And this, Jose, is what I've got to say to you when you're looking for your leaders. You got to think the long term. If something is good, it'll be good for yourself. It'll be good for your future self. It'll be good for the people that you live with in your household, and it'll be good for all of society. And if there is a leader who is purporting something that actually fulfill all those things, then perhaps they're leading you towards what you value as good. And there's one more complication. All of us, when we get into leadership positions, are able to be corrupted, so that to keep onto power, we start letting go of what's good and start doing what's bad. So in other words, I'm just saying that power corrupts, and we have ample evidence to show throughout history that people who started out as good Yeah, they turned the tables and ended up not being good.
Well, thank you, doctor. But so there's a couple things. I mean, you're talking about leadership in the business world, for example, in corporation level,
Yeah,
right? You're leading a team, you're leading a company, and I get it. I mean, we have great leaders that we actually are impressed with. I mean, we follow. I mean, in today's society and throughout history, but there are also leaders that that would, for example, have a bad agenda, as Jose stated, and the bad agenda is, let's say, I mean, we had empires that actually, were thriving on annihilating others
yeah,
and taking lands and murder and massacres and all this stuff, and yet people are still agreeing to that, or at least they kind of support that and rally behind that. I mean, we're talking about some wars where, like, even like, for example, I mean, war can be justified to a degree, but I mean, there's that song, like, "Was it good for?" Absolutely
yeah,
nothing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
so,
Absolutely, I think
so, so I mean, if we could avoid it, that would be nice. But certainly, I get it. If there is somebody that's invading your territory, whatever, you're going to defend yourself. That's one thing. But when people just decide, hey, listen, we're going to go grab some land and get their resources, and let's just do this. People tend to agree to that. They love that. I mean, hey, listen, we're the bigger ones, we're the better
yeah,
ones. Let's do this. So I think my beef with that is just simple. Like, why would I follow something that doesn't kind of compute well with my brain and my let's say principles, right?
yeah,
Is there a question of principles? Is that because people follow like, for example, if your ideology is kind of close enough to mine, then therefore I'm going to be inclined to follow you and just support it, right?
yes,
So for example, someone goes and pushes and we hear this all the time. Would you jump off the cliff if I tell you to do so? Well, some of these people would do that, and they literally go, like, I watch, sometimes you watch a war movie and you see all these people running to death, right? Literally, right?
yeah,
Because some of them believe, some of them are just, unfortunately, they just signed up, they have no choice, right?
yeah,
But there's still a choice, right? I mean, why people don't make the right choices sometimes, like, I
yeah,
don't have to join.
yeah,
Like, we have a mandate, for example, to go to war, right? And then I'm giving this extreme example, but that's like a big one, right? And that's been the consistent one throughout history.
yeah,
It is a big one. So how, I mean, the question really that I have is more about, we know, again, I get it, wrong or right, those are things that we have to evaluate individually, everybody, but we do have some level of understanding of some of those norms, right? I mean, we know killing is bad, right? Unless it's really for the right reason, which is like self-defense or
yeah,
something. But even that may not be a good reason, right? If
yeah,
you can avoid it, right? And that's an example, right? But like, we have judgment calls. We make judgment calls on a lot of things. You talked about the business. We can go there too. I mean, there are corporations that are going down the tube because of leadership decisions. And listen, I've been in the corporate world for 30 years, and not all the leaders I've worked with, were really true leaders for me. At least I don't see them as such. They don't know how to make decisions, for example, right? Or then
yeah,
they make the wrong ones, or they don't listen,
yeah,
And so these are some of the things that I personally just wanted to add, because I think there's
yeah.
more to this.
Okay, there's a lot more to this. This is a huge question. In fact, there's a few things that you brought up. Okay, so let's start off with business leadership.
Mm.
Now, we like to think that our business leaders are good, and we put them there because they are good to take us in the right direction. But unfortunately, so the classic book is actually called The Prince by Machiavelli, that shows how to be a leader without being good, in fact, by being bad. And recently, I've just forgotten the author, I believe it's Robert Greene, who wrote the 48 Principles of Leadership, which is basically a rewriting of Machiavelli. So how to be a good leader by doing bad things. And unfortunately, we have a tendency to, as human beings, get leaders to do our dirty work. All right. And this is how I get into war as well, because just traveling, I had the chance to read a 1990s book by John Cashman, Cash, called The Causes of War. And basically, wars are either between countries that are rivals, that are equal in power but are rivals, or that there is a war over resources, and either, usually, a big guy is picking on a little guy, and much less a little guy picks on a big guy. All right. Now, this is not unlike what happens in the playground, in bullies or rivalries. So what I'm saying is that our wars actually come from something inside each of our own hearts. And that's actually hard to swallow. It's hard to look at us having the capacity to do evil as well as good, because we don't like to look at that. So when we look at our leaders, we can blame our leaders rather than ourselves. So during World War II, there were actually Nazi SS people who would be part of exterminating people during day, but they would come home to a family at night and listen to how their 6-year-old was doing in school. All right. And that's bizarre for us to think about, but to actually remind ourselves that we have the capacity of evil in ourselves, right in our heart. And I like the Solzhenitsyn quote, the line between good and evil is drawn in each of our hearts, so that we see that we've got to conquer ourselves if we're going to reach for world peace in our world. So they're just a few things that show how complex this whole idea of followers and leaders are. Sometimes we want our leaders to be bad, and we don't take responsibility for that.
Well, thank you, Doc. And again, I mean, I love what you said about that. We all have the potential of evil, right? I mean, everybody can turn, both sides. I mean, we do have those two whisperers, right? We can go one way or the other. And I think even religious speaking, everybody believes in that. So around the world, so we can, I mean, it's funny in the movies you see some great people in person live, but they can portray and act, in a very, villain way in the movie,
Yes.
right? And so they take that role. They do a good job. And a lot of those folks, when you actually really follow them for real, they're the opposite character of whatever that individual they portray in the movie. But the fact is, we all have that. We can actually turn in, and sometimes we all get upset, right? And I think at that level of upset, we're kind of tweaking a little bit, and we're moving up a notch the button into the evil side of who we are. But
Yeah.
again, it's really just that. And listen, I mean, what I have a situation with here is that, I get it if you have a few people that can follow. Let's say you mentioned for example the SS, right? I mean, it's a bunch of people that were agreeing, as to you said, to do horrible things to individuals. I mean, things that happen in war in general. There's so much crime that happens there, right? Abuse. I don't know. I mean, we have there's a whole laundry list there, right?
Yes.
And and what they did at that, especially the SS was, unforgivable. I mean, I don't care by all means. I don't know how they're gonna, if on the next world, I don't know how they're gonna face their judgment there, but that's another story for another day. I mean, if those that believe that there's gonna be a reckoning, later on, I mean, I would not want to be in their shoes, but that's just me. But the fact is, as you said, they like, I mean, even murders, right? I mean, they kill, they do stuff, and they just like, it's cool, like there's nothing going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy, right? I mean, but there is a level of mental problem. Am I reaching there? Because I mean, you have to be a little bit off somehow. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but there is something that needs to be tweaked to, because I think we, as you said, we do have the ability to connect the dots and see this versus the other, good versus evil in a way.
Okay, but it's really hard to sort of see that as a mental problem, because what we're talking about now is actually human nature. And just to bring it back to the leaders followers problem, look, we've just had an election. We've got a new government in the USA, and close to 50% of the population believe that the good guy is in and the bad guy is finally out, while the other 50% of the population believe that the bad guy is in and the good guy is out. So both cannot be true. And to paint the picture that one side has all the answers and the other side does not, that can't be true either. But in the game of leaders and followers, persuasion is used to bring an agenda through. Now, closer to the truth is probably that one side has got some good stuff, the other side has some other good stuff, and it'd be nice to be able to pick and choose from each of them. But we can't do that. And given the choice of the game that we have set up for ourselves, that it's got to be one side or the other, then persuasion is what leaders use to get followers to believe their agenda. And this all flies in the face of reason, because we are not reasonable creatures. We are reasonable creatures and we are emotional creatures. And because our beliefs are able to be persuaded, that's what happens. How to sort through it, that's another thing, but it's not going to be a medication. It's going to be understanding human nature.
Whew, that's a tough one. I think. I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, listen. This is what you do as work, and it is very. It's amazing. I mean, I don't know. It's. I gotta give you all the credits, and, and because you deal with a lot of emotions and people and behavior and stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
and it varies from one spectrum to the other. I mean, from one end to the other. And I love what you said. Like, you're right. I mean, it cannot be possibly true. I mean, half is voting this way, the other half is voting this way. Well, close enough. And but because everybody's looking from their own, I guess, lens, right? They're looking
yes,
at it from what they want out of this outcome. If I
yes,
want certain things to happen, then this is the right choice on the left. If I want certain things to happen, this the right,
yeah,
is the one that I want. So, and then people just tend to can lean forward, and people switch too. They switch sides all the time. I
right,
mean,
that's right,
that's the other part, right?
yeah,
So, but I love what you said about persuasion and people being literally almost hypnotizing something in a way. Like, you convince them enough through emotions, and you get all the excitement going, and they believe in that, and they're like, oh, okay, you're right, we're gonna do this.
yeah.
And even if it's not, I mean, so it's amazing. I mean, how we are. I mean, yeah, we're complex humans.
Yeah, we are. So this gives me the opportunity to talk about how belief works in the brain, because there's nothing wrong with anybody's brain depending on what they believe. You can't give a pill to change somebody's beliefs. We are all entitled to make our own choices about beliefs. But what the brain does is it uses beliefs, and I'm talking about religious beliefs, I'm talking about political beliefs, I'm talking about social beliefs. It uses beliefs as a shortcut to get through life. So, in other words, let's say in the business world, if you meet somebody called James for the first time, and your boss says you'll be working with James really closely for the next 3 years, your brain actually has certain beliefs about people called James. And the thing is, that's all clouded by your experience of people called James beforehand. So you've made all these judgments about somebody that you don't know, and it works for your brain so that the words that come out of your mouth are helpful. Now, the thing to do is over the next couple of months, you get to know James, to know what he's really all about, and have a working relationship that's based on this particular person. And we all need to have the ability to say, you know what? I was wrong about what I thought about this person first. I have now changed my beliefs. But a lot of us are very reticent to do that. And so many of us can hold on to beliefs that we don't even believe, just because we don't like admitting that we were wrong.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, pride, I guess, comes,
Pride, yes.
pride
Okay.
is our enemy, I think. I mean, yeah, which we all have a level of that. I mean, and sadly, that's a fact of life. I mean, some of us can check that a little bit better than others, I think. But I love what you said. There's no pill for this stuff. I mean, we
No, that's exactly
you
right.
got you got to work around it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and pride is not a scientific term. Okay, it's a philosophical and a religious and a sociological term and a moral term, if you like. But pride in the brain sort of doesn't compute. So we're bringing things together in a very deep level that really take a lot to comb through until we actually understand what's going on.
ego.
Ego, yeah. So ego is a word that in psychiatric circles came about by an historical psychiatrist by the name of Sigmund Freud, and we accept it, but we don't have evidence for what's called an ego. The most that we have is we know that we've got an orbitofrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain, that will actually monitor everything and say, this is what I want. Okay, so we do have that part of the brain, but an actual ego, right, which is part of a personality, we don't know where in the brain a personality is. The best evidence shows that the personality is probably impregnated on all of our DNA. So in other words, it's through our whole body.
Well, so is there evidence? I mean, yes, as mentioned about in our DNA, is there an evidence from a genetics perspective?
Okay. So the evidence comes from a very exciting experiment that was done in California in the 1990s, I believe, where what they were doing is they were doing heart and lung transplants in people. Now, when you get a transplant of a heart and lung, and they kept them together because it's better than sort of having to sew up all the connections between the two, they found something really astounding. They found that the people who got these new heart and lungs started to show the personality of the person from whom the heart and lung came from. And we go, wow, that's sort of Twilight type stuff. How does that happen? Well, from a material point of view, it happens because a big chunk of somebody else's DNA has now been incorporated into your body. And so parts of their personality started to manifest in the recipient's life. And that's astounding. That's astounding. But that's the evidence, Hurricane.
Well, is that particular to the heart, or is it any other organs? And the reason I'm asking is that because there are some discussions about the heart being a better brain than the brain.
Yes, there are discussions, and a lot of the pseudoscience talks about the heart as a center. But as far as science is concerned, the only reason that we have this evidence is because the heart and the lung was such a big chunk that we can actually do transplants on. We do transplants on kidneys, and that's only a smaller chunk, if you like. We can't do a brain transplant. We can't do leg transplants. We can do smaller transplants, but they don't yield us that information. So that's why, in a sense, this particular study was unique.
Well, not yet, though, on the other ones, right?
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right.
We're evolving, right? So we never know with all the stuff and the technology we have. So, all right, well, thank you so much for really, responding. I mean, this is a tough one, and like always, you you're victorious on these things. I mean, this is all right. So, shall we move on to the next one?
I'd love to, Hurricane. Love to.
All right, here we go. So there's two parts. So again, the comments only gives me a certain space. So I'm going to use the first part and then the second part. All right, here we go. Doc, I feel that I'm a failure as I'm unable to succeed in anything, school, business, and or relationships, despite that I do my best to. I find that my outcomes are all negative. Is it my mindset and outlook in life? What can I do and how can I turn this around? Lauren Fort Smith.
Oh, Lauren, my heart goes out to you. No, that sounds really, really difficult. But Hurricane, we've just been around a whole lot of colleges throughout the world, and we've just found out how prevalent this mindset is. This attitude that people feel like failures. So I think we've got a few useful things to say about it, because the one thing that I want to say straight up front is, you can be judged for what you do, but you can't be judged for who you are. So in other words, you're a human being, not a human doing. And Hurricane, because of social media, because of our internet technologies, we make comparisons after comparisons after comparisons. And because we can and we do, we compare ourselves with the best in the world, and we're all going to feel bad. In fact, there was a study that came out just recently of a whole lot of Harvard graduates. They all suffered from low self-esteem. They all felt that they were not doing well enough. And that flies in the face from the obvious reality that they were doing better than the top 3% of the population. So this is a comparison that our brain makes. And the thing is, for people like Lauren, who feel that they are a failure at everything, you cannot be a failure at being a person. You cannot be a failure at being yourself. Lauren, you are success at being who you are. What gives that feeling of being a failure is being bombarded with messages from other people as to what success is. Success is having a big career. Success is making money. Success is having a great date. Success is all those outward things that we all fall into temptation about. But Lauren, you've got to ask your mum first and your dad if you are a failure. And they will look at you with eyes of gold and say, no, you're our Lauren. You are a success. You don't have to do anything to prove who you are or what you're good at. Okay. And I mean that sincerely and truthfully. The thing is, though, where we go from there is we all want to be doing a bit better. And that's where we have to be managing our expectations, because in this world, you will always find people who are greater than you and lesser than you. So you can compare yourself with who's greater and sort of go, I'm bitter about that. Or you can say, you know what, I'm just going to be a little bit humble. because there are people who are greater than me. And then there are people who are not doing as well. And you can get vain about that, or you can become grateful. Because if you compare yourself with the right people, you will see that you're doing extremely well simply by living in a country like the United States of America and having a family, which I assume that you have.
Well, thank you, Doug. I mean, it's amazing because I'm listening to you, and I'm a firm believer that there is no such thing as failure. I don't even try to use that word, because to me, failure is actually learning. So,
okay, that's so good. So good. Good attitude. Yeah, love it. Love it, Hurricane. Yeah.
I mean, trust me, I use this all the time, like, for especially like in the business world, right? I mean, there's nothing that we fail. We just either succeed or learn. I mean, so it's a win-win.
That's right. That's right. So the way that we tend to put it is success. Failure is success because, as you say, Hurricane, you're going to learn from it and you're going to do better the next time. The only failure is not trying or not doing in the first place. So, Lauren, whatever you feel that you need to do it. Success or fail. And it's okay to fail. In fact, I'm going to give you a story, okay, Hurricane, because Caroline does a whole course at university called clowning, okay? And the clown attitude is that they live outside the rules of society, okay? A clown will look at things differently. A clown will do things that are unacceptable and laugh. And children are like clowns. Nobody would say to a 4-year-old that they've failed, because that whole concept of success and failure is something that is socialized onto us as we grow up. So simply to be yourself, to laugh, and to actually go out there and fail. And what Caroline does is she gets people up to tell their failure stories. And what we do is we clap them. We celebrate their failures. We go, ta-da, you failed, well done. And you get congratulated for failing because, you know what, Hurricane, we all fail. It's part of being human to fail. And the thing that this does is it makes people feel great. All of a sudden, people want to come out and tell us how they failed because they're going to be congratulated and they're going to be with a group of people that have all failed, and we're all able to celebrate our humanness. And Lauren, that's what I want to say to you. Celebrate your humanness. Never before in the history of all humankind has there been a person like you, Lauren. And in that, you have already succeeded.
Well, thank you, Doug. I'm smiling because like I'm getting excited about this because here's the thing, right? It's amazing. I love this concept of celebrating the failure or the experience where someone talks about the failure. But there is nobody. I don't think there's one person that can ever stand up in the world and claim that they have zero, experiences of a failure, level, meaning that they've tried something that didn't work out. I mean, the best. I mean, you're talking about earlier about those scientists, right? They tried to do the atomic, bomb, or like the Manhattan Project, right? Just to relate back to that question, these guys, I'm sure they failed or they tried over and over and over and over to figure out before they got where they went, right? So, and that goes for whether you're a sports person, athlete, you're an actor, you're an influencer, whatever it is, you have to test things. And part of the test is that not all the tests are going to come up positive. Some of them are not going to work, and you're going to have to keep trying until you get to that, what we would see in general as a success. As you said, success is anything. I mean, getting up in the morning and maybe getting off, the bed is a success for someone who has a problem, for example, standing up, as simple as that.
Yeah.
Eating normally could be a success for someone who may have, difficulties of eating, maybe an elderly person, right? I mean, I see that with my mom, for example. I mean, things that she does now because of age, like the little things are success for her, and it's okay. And that's why I said we might have to just remove the word failure or just make it a equal to success. I mean, it's just another synonymous word as opposed to the opposite of it. And I've used this actually before, where I always see them as part of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. So you have to have one piece, and so if you're a human, you're gonna have the ability to do that. And actually, I think every failure is a success or is a step towards success. Every failure is a learning step towards a better outcome. And I think Lauren's question, she did refer to the mindset, and that's really what it is. I think it's how we look at things. If we see, ourselves in a way, and we convince ourselves in a way, I think that's a problem in terms of like, because we're putting that negative input. But if we look at it, in the positive, like half full versus half empty, which again, yeah, for me, I'm always on the positive side. I mean, I had this discussion recently that I see a lot of bad things that I don't agree with, all the time.
Yeah.
I could actually, I have a chance. I mean, with the network, I have a chance to actually go and bash on a lot of people that I see, wrong, and I say I can use this, right? But I
Yeah.
don't do it because it's anti my principle. I'm
Yeah.
still holding to my positivity, even though sometimes like, I want to do it, right? Yeah. But but it's true, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I look at some of the social media. I mean, it's all bashing on others. I mean, that's all there is. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but that's all negative, and it's creating negativity. It's some sort of bullying, as you said, that used the word earlier. It can also affect people. We've talked about this in suicide and things like that. Discussions before. So positivity is everything, and positivity is a way of success. And in there's gonna be a level of not making it, not doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years, and it's small steps, some things work, some don't, and you keep going. Not all the shows are equal, and so on and so forth, and you just get better, slowly. And I'm okay. And that's the other thing. I think we live in the world of others, how they see us. We almost like, we're if it's not conform to whatever the other guys are saying to us or
Yeah.
they expect from us. I mean, who cares? I mean, like I love what you said. There's only one Lauren, there's only one you, there's only one me, there's only one Carol. Everybody is individual, and there's no one that's going to duplicate. There's no clone of us. I mean, we are who we are, and how it is, whatever it is, we're good, for what it's worth. I think that's how I see it. And the more I think we believe in that, the more we get that into our heads, I think we can change that dynamics and the mindset shifts.
Okay, that's so good, Hurricane. That's such a good mindset. In fact, what I want to do is take some of the things that you said right there and wrap it together for an answer for Lauren, so that Lauren knows how to move forward. Because as you said, sometimes just getting out of bed in the morning is success. All right. So the first thing that I want to say is, as you said, we can't be living to other people's expectation. So Lauren, find out what you value and what you believe would be success for you. And to do this, what you do is you look at who you were 3 months ago, 6 months ago, or a year ago, and you say, am I more along the path that I want to go on? Am I being better at being myself than I was a year ago? And if the answer is yes, then you're a success. And to do that, you've got to find out what you actually value, all right? And to go out and find out what you're valuing, go into nature, because there is no tree, there is no bush, there is no cloud or ocean that's going to tell you that you're a failure. When you're out in nature, nothing tells you that you're a failure. In fact, you just feel that you just are. You are just Lauren. And that feeling of being validated simply for being who you are, being part of nature, puts you in a space where you go, okay, what do I actually value? And like the rest of us, Lauren, you're probably going to come up with things like that you value: love, friendship, honesty, integrity, loyalty. And then you start to build what you want to do to move forward in your life, just being Lauren, rather than looking in terms of success or failure, which from social media has a very narrow definition. And Lauren, I get caught up in it too. Sometimes I think if I have more followers that I'm doing better, or if I'm earning more money that I'm doing better, and that's success. Success is actually if I'm able to be what I'm supposed to be, and you're able to be what you're supposed to be.
Whew. Well, doctor, I'm listening to you, but I think we all are Lauren. I think
Yes.
every human being is a Lauren in this case.
Yes.
I mean, we all have, at a point of our lives, question, ourselves because of other people. And
Yeah.
and sometimes people make it really almost their mission and their agenda to make you feel that way. And
Yeah.
the sooner you can get away from that, and I love what you said, the example of nature. I mean, trees and nature is not going to tell you anything. You're still who you are. It's only when you compare yourself to others, and that's the other comparing. Why do we compare ourselves to others? And by the way, everybody's destiny is different. Everybody is, life is different. So no matter what, I mean, again, we're talking about on a show. I mean, there are thousands of shows, right? I mean, and everybody's got a choice to see which show they want to go for, what to watch and whatever. it's again, it's all a choice. So it doesn't matter if nobody watches that, let's say, right? You know, and you know, like my rule, and I think it's your rule too, doctor. One person gets affected and with one of those
Yeah.
presentations that we do and, and discussions we have, and he gets in a positive light and changes their life for better, that's all, that's that mission accomplished right there. And
Yeah.
so it all depends how we look at it. I mean, is it that we want, obviously if we can multiply that in a million and a billion, why not? But the idea is you got to start somewhere, and you just can't keep blaming like things are not happening, blah blah blah. Again, the best businesses have failed a couple of times, if not more than a couple of times, to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something like in the business world, right? I've seen it, and I actually use it. I mean, we look at Disney. I mean, I'm a fan of Walt Disney, and what he did in terms of his imagination and all stuff. I mean, he was fired because he was told he was lacking imagination. Oprah was fired from her first job, right? I mean, she runs a whole network and she's world famous, right? I mean, those are just a couple examples, and we can go on for many, many, many. I mean, there's discussion about Albert Einstein that he failed, and he was ridiculed when he was a kid, and so I mean, hello, that talking about brains. I mean, his brain is literally preserved just to see what they can do with it eventually, right? So those are some examples. But so when we hear this, folks, and by the way, this is not just for Lauren. We all are Lords. I think we all can take this message home and like just believe in yourself, and don't worry about people. Don't have to think about what others see or think. And that's the thing. Like people are like, I'm gonna be judged, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that, and you put in things in your head more than you should. And I think the it's funny. I have a show that's actually haven't posted. It's gonna post over the weekend. We just did. It's about self-centric versus like system-centric, and the discussion was about like, I mean, we do it to ourselves. We just kind of like go crazy. I mean, we should just, as you said, celebrate who we are individually, and that's all there is. So thank you, doctor, for really kind of sharing with us the I guess psychological value that we all can take home. This is like really wealth, 101. If we use this principle that you just shared with us, I think we're all going to be good. Now, it doesn't matter who, where. And I love what you said about you look at people who may have less as opposed to people who have more. And if they have more, hey, good, good to them, beautiful. I applaud for them. Hey, you can have more. The more the merrier. Good luck. And if you don't have, I mean, sometimes, and by the way, that's true. It's whether it's information, knowledge, power, wealth, health, everybody, there's different discrepancies. Not everybody's equal. Some people are better than others in a lot of areas. And you don't worry about what you don't have. Worry about what you have. I literally, I say it too. I believe that we all infinite zillionaires, or there's no value to a human life because you're physically, I mean, it's amazing how we are. I mean, we talk about heart transplant and lung transplant. I mean, there's no price for these things. I mean, I was talking to someone about a kidney transplant and how he could not go to the bathroom for a year because his kidneys failed. That's it. There's no more urine, right? The machines have to do that. I mean, just thinking about that, how hard it is for someone, right?
Yes.
And we take things for granted. So celebrate you, folks. I mean, I think that's a great thing to have as an attitude.
Yeah.
That's just my little 2 cents.
Good stuff, Hurricane.
All right. Well, doctor, I had a very couple of loaded questions, but we're coming to the end of the time here. But so I'm gonna try to do something that is light. Let's see. Where is it? Hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know. So I'm gonna throw the question. If we don't finish today, we can run it next one. All right. So maybe we'll start with it again.
Yeah.
So, doctor, let me put it up. This is gonna be interesting because something we talked about last year. Doctor, last year I believe you had a discussion about gender identity. Now that we have a new president in office, this is being revisited, and some of the rules around this topic have already changed. What would the psychological impact be on those who have been affected? Now, doctor, that last year we talked about this as the topic of the hour, where it was like the whole thing. Was it last year? I think it was last year, beginning of last year, where it was like, it's an identity thing as opposed to a psychological thing. And it was a lot of things, and, how people identify in certain way versus the other way. And then it became a little bit more approved to call yourself, whoever you wanted to be. Right. And now we're back to, there's only a male and a female, which again, in 90% of the context of the world, that's kind of be acceptable. But what is the impact on those folks that kind of, okay, we have this, but now we don't have it? So how does that work?
Okay, so the impact is actually quite huge. But more than anything, this underlines the difference between politics and science. So basically, anybody who's affected by things that are changing right now, one thing that I have to say is it doesn't change who you are. It's the politics that are changing, all right? You're not actually changing. It might actually be that you find a few people that are less sympathetic than there were before, okay? But maybe not, okay? So the first thing I want to say is we have to keep separate the politics and the science. The psychological impact on the people who have been affected is actually going to be a lot because, all right, let's start off with politics. We basically have in every country a conservative side and a more progressive side. And the idea is that we do progress in our ideas. So we do move forward, but not too quickly. And that's why you have the progressives sort of putting the foot on the accelerator and the conservatives putting the foot on the brake so that we travel down that road at a safe speed. So all of that doesn't affect who we are as people, but it does affect how we approach people. It does affect funding. It approaches what things in science get research and what things don't. And that, unfortunately, is something that we can't change. But again, I want to come back to the Laurens of the world, which we all are. You still are who you are, whoever you happen to be. And although the psychological impact is that there'll be less understanding people out there, surrounding yourself with the people who understand you, like close friends and family, okay, that's actually 90% of the world. 90% of your world actually happens inside your head and with the people who are close to you, so that sometimes you need to build a safe cocoon from a world that can be impactful and really quite harsh sometimes.
Well, thank you, Doctor. It's it is a difficult topic, and you're right. I mean, these changes, up and down. I mean, doesn't matter. I mean, if this was the reverse, I think it would be just as bad, right? I mean, or worse. The concept is that the concept is that you just kind of figure one thing and then it changes, and so it becomes a little bit more. And so there is an impact. I think that's yeah. But I love what you said. Again, we go back to Lauren. It's a matter of if it is an identity thing, that's who you are, that's who you identify with. It doesn't matter what people think, and that's the thing. I think we're talking about the same thing. I think the problem with that whole discussion was that I think the majority of people, right, whether they like it, they accept it or not, that's on them. It's okay. It's the question is, I think that the resistance was more because it was pushed into the public as hey, this, we want to accept this, right? And so people were refusing it. So I think that was the resistance, on this whole subject, right, of gender and identity. Now on the reverse side, now it's people they don't feel one way or the other, right? So only from a political perspective, there's the shift, and okay, we're going to do this. I mean, I was watching something earlier where. Even in the prisons, for example, now they're gonna move the transgender, into the male or the men's, prisons, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's gonna be a difficult thing, for people.
Huge impact. That's a huge impact. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult. And Hurricane, because this is a huge topic, because it's huge politically, it's also huge scientifically, it's also very controversial. There are also areas that science hasn't worked out yet. And plus there are individuals that are affected by this, right? This is huge, and you will find me containing it because we're near the end of the show. But the thing is that in psychiatry, there has been gender affirming surgery for almost 100 years now, okay? It's over 90 years since the first surgery, which I believe was in 1933 in Germany. But because of social media, this has become mainstream, and the whole ideas have become mainstream. And the bizarre thing is that a lot of people have huge opinions about this when it doesn't affect their lives. And that becomes really problematic, okay? Because what we'd like is that we would support each other as human beings more and more. And the evidence shows that we actually do that we are becoming more tolerant of our differences. We are embracing each other in our differences a whole lot more. But it's that accelerator or brake, because if it's too fast, then you end up with a backlash. And that's not good for people either. So the evidence, and the scientific evidence, is the evidence of the mere exposure effect, which was a whole lot of experiments done in the 1960s to show that once we get to know people, we get to accept them as people, no matter what. Okay. And as you know, I've got a heart particularly for people with mental health issues. And even there, Hurricane, we have still not accepted that this is a medical mental health condition rather than a character flaw. And so when it comes to things like sexuality, gender identification, we still have a lot of work to do. And we're just grappling with how fast we're going to do that work. But as you said, those individuals who are going to be changed from one prison system to another, that's going to be a huge impact for them.
Well, thank you, Doc. I know you try to kind of squish it in the time frame. I do want to. We have an actual interaction in our YouTube, so somebody did actually put a question. I know we usually do the hour. Is it okay to expand? Just
let's go. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, again, I don't know about your time frame, but I know
no, that's all right. That's right. You're in control here, Hurricane. Your show.
All right, I have time. I mean, you're the guest here, and your time is the most valuable here. So I'm good, as long as you are. All right. So are we good with this question?
We're good with this question. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna go to this one because this actually came through our YouTube feed here. So let's do this as a comment. So, do cults recruit subject by brainwashing them, or do individuals gravitate to cults to fulfill unmet needs?
Oh, okay. So this is a new question, Hurricane?
Well, it's a new question that came in through the YouTube. So I don't want to kind of somebody.
No. This is a good question, because it actually ties in with our whole of our leaders and followers discourse that we were going through. So Dennis puts this question: are people brainwashed? Or do individuals gravitate to cults to fulfill unmet needs? Okay, the answer is actually, Dennis, it's a combination of both, and probably a whole lot more, because a cult, so by definition, is an organization that has extreme beliefs and extreme views in certain areas, normally religious, but can also be political. And so the question is, why is it that people graduate towards that? And generally speaking, that the people who graduate towards extreme beliefs are people who have not found acceptance in the mainstream. So this is why, as a society, we are actually walking down this path of being more and more accepting to more and more people. And it's a difficult path, okay? I'm not going to say that that's easy at all, but we're doing it. But when people find themselves rejected, then they will find acceptance by gravitating towards things like cults. On the other hand, cults are also capable of brainwashing people right from childhood. I've had to work with people in my clinical practice who have been abused by cults, because as children, we don't have a sense that things should be or things shouldn't be. So if early in life somebody is being abused, okay, they actually think as children, and I'm talking about children by the age of 4 and 5, they actually think that that's normal because that's what life has given them. They will assume that that's what life is for everybody. And so cults can prey on that technique, on that belief, and groom people to be abused for decades. Individuals can do this, and cults can do that. And that is a form of brainwashing, because it's working with the brain's development from an early age. But if you see people who are vulnerable, and cults know how to prey on people who are vulnerable, then they will start with things that sound okay and just keep nudging them in a certain direction until they become part of the cult. And that, it's a very sad thing, but it does happen. It's close to criminal activity. In fact, it is criminal activity to take away somebody's free will. So you're allowed to choose your beliefs, and you have to do that with full possession of who you are and your intellectual capacities.
Well, so thank you, doctor. So the question, that I have, I mean, how does this whole brainwash work? I mean, psychologically speaking, I mean, is it persuasion? Is it, there's a dopamine hit that happens when you kind of feel good about something? I mean, what do they, I mean, I get when you do drugs, for example, they work a certain way, but how do you individually change somebody's perspective, from that? Again, I'm just curious about this because,
Yeah. Okay. So we like to think that we all make decisions based on what we believe and what we want. Unfortunately, the science is against that. And as an example, I'm going to use the science that we have on trends on people divorcing. Okay, we'd like to think that as individuals, we decide that we're going to separate from a married partner because we have conflict, and this is what we choose. What the science actually shows is rates of divorce follow society's trends. So basically, the more prosperous a society is, the more accepting it is of divorces, then that's what actually drives divorces more than interpersonal conflict. And we go, oh, hold up, that can't be true of me. And so there's a whole lot of people that have divorced that think that that's not true of them. But society as a whole shows a different story. So that's part of that follows and leaders thing. So in other words, if other people are doing things, we think it's okay for us to do it as well. And that goes into all of our sexuality, what drugs we are or not going to take. Or another good example is lying. A lot of people now believe that it is okay to lie as long as you don't hurt anybody through it. Okay. Whereas decades ago, lying was just simply wrong. Okay. And there has been a shift in society in looking at lying. In fact, in colleges, and Caroline has experienced that in the university that she works at, people have little remorse for, let's say, plagiarizing an essay. They actually have remorse for being found out. Whereas decades ago, people would have been mortified to think that they were accused of cheating, which is a form of lying. So unfortunately, our brain is malleable. We don't just make decisions by ourselves. We make decisions based on the prevailing values of all of society. And in between all of society and our individual values are what leaders of political parties or cults can do to nudge us in a direction that they want. So in other words, push through their agendas.
Whew. Well, thank you, doctor. By the way, Dennis, thank you for the question. I mean, it's pretty, I guess it was related to the discussion that we had earlier. So again, it's just in the bottom of the comments. So I was able to see.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because the way the comments are lined up, I mean, it just came on the bottom, so I couldn't see it until I scrolled down. So I apologize for not bringing it earlier, but I figured, he's still watching, so he wanted to get the answer. But again, thank you for the answer, because to your point, doctor, it's a very interesting world where you can persuade people, you can shift their mind, you can brainwash them, but also people have, as we talked about, they have tendencies to choose certain things, and if they feel there is an inclination to this ideology, then you know what, I like this, let me do this, right? And this goes with religion, goes with, as you said, cults, it goes with a lot of things. I mean, now when talking about extremism, it happens in a lot of ways. And sadly, as you said, the most people that get easily manipulated are the ones that are maybe still not in the level where they can figure out. And by the way, I go back to one of the earlier sessions and talk shows we had, is about how we as humans don't even get our identity until like 25, and maybe at 35. No, I think the brain is not even developed at 25, and identity is like in the 30s, right? I mean, I might get in that. I forgot, the exact.
Yeah. So what the science is telling us is that the frontal lobe part of the brain, where we make rational decisions, is not fully developed until at least 25. And the truth is, it keeps developing on. And identity actually is something that we cling on to really quickly as children, right? So that you will know what your race is, what your gender is, what country you're in, and what football club that you support. Okay, they're really important as children. Whereas your identity then becomes your career and the people that you hang out with. But then the later you go on in life, your identity actually becomes more tied up in what you believe the whole journey of life actually is. So later in life, a lot of people sort of they get some wisdom about them. Their spiritual journey becomes more important. Helping other people becomes more important. And they see that their identity is part of a broader sweep rather than just themselves. So identity is something that's evolving all the time, but particularly in college-aged people, the whole idea of identity is very, very strong because they're just starting out to give their contribution to the world. And this is what they want to do. And this is how they want to contribute, right? And so they become really passionate about what's possible and what is right and what is wrong. And and that's what studies show, that the adolescent brain is much more black and white, and it's much more passionate about what should be done. And that's why college is such a vital part of life. And the idea that we mellow as we age, yeah, that's our identity. Just being rounded out a little bit, to say, yeah, you know what? I wasn't right in everything, I made a few mistakes along the way. So,
Yes. Thank you, Nick. It's funny I'm listening to you because something that we just talked about in that show that's going to air is that, there's like that age point where like, so my guest and, we're friends and so he stated something like, after 50, you start seeing the world differently. And I agree to that. I don't know why that 50 age is a sweet spot, but when you hit that 50 mark, somehow your whole world changes in terms of your perspective and how you decide on things and how you see the world, opinions, this, that, yeah. It's like almost like you start switching, your whole thing, like things that you've seen before and you behave differently in a way. You kind of reevaluate yourself. I don't know. Maybe that's the other transitional, age for mankind is that, that 50. I mean, we do know about the middle age crisis type of things, usually in the 40s. But as far as I'm concerned, physically and mentally, I think everything changed at 50.
No, I'd agree with that because after 50, we become increasingly aware of our own mortality. Okay, so if there is something that you haven't done in life, a lot of people go, "Oh, I've still got to do this," right? And other people look at the choices they've made and they see that they've locked themselves in to a certain pathway. But you start to become more aware of your limitations. And in that, to be able to integrate that, you've got to look at your limitations and make that part of your identity to say, yeah, these are the things that I have done. These are the things I wanted to do. These are the things that I was not able to do. Now that I'm getting less time and things are limited, what do I still value in my life? And so that's how we refine our identity.
Woo. Well, listen, I mean, folks, you're watching, listening today or anytime, this is going to be evergreen. So catch on and really get these nuggets. I mean, when doctor gives you this, I mean, you take it to the bank. I mean, I use them. I apply these things. I mean, a lot of things we've covered in different shows. I apply and I remember those. I even use them, as I guess informational pieces that I throw in other type of discussions that I have in different shows, and so it's really so much value that I love it. I mean, I always make a joke about being the first client of my own shows, and I think I'm a client for you. I you're my go-to guy, when it comes to this, and I use this stuff. I mean, obviously, we don't have an actual medical or mental connection as a provider and me as a client, but as a joke, the idea is that the more I am listening to you, the more I'm getting all that stuff that I'm applying, and believe me, it serves well. I mean, anyone, if you catch all the shows before, you'll see a whole different, I mean, I'm talking about wealth of information that if you apply it in life, your life is going to be a lot simpler. I had a joke about, again, I had you, doctor, a week ago. We had a meeting, we had a discussion. There was a lot of disagreement, I would say. So I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna give you the Dr. Heim's rule. Google the things. Don't have to argue. Just Google the stuff or Chat GPT, and that'll give you the rules, and you don't have to even fight about this stuff. And that stuff works. Like every time now, even with my wife, when we have anything like, oh, it's this, you know what, just Google. Let me know.
Just Google it.
One of us is right, one of us is wrong. Whatever it is, Google is going to tell us what it is, and then we move on. And so it works. I mean, that's just to give you a sample of how it works. But thank you, doctor, for all your good stuff. I mean, it's real, and it works. So thank you so much. Well, all right. So folks, I mean, we've exceeded our hour. Usually we end it at the hour, but we missed a couple, so another 15 minutes that I was able to get from Doctor, I would take it. So you're watching live right now. Climb to your prime with Dr. Heim. It's usually the last Friday of the month. The next one will be the last, Friday of February. So look forward to that one. Please do send your questions. We value them, and of course, if you can interact as Dennis did, and come on. I mean, literally, guys, it's open. You can come on and be on the screen with us if you wanted to. Now, again, it's an open invitation, so please do so if you want to. But if not, share the value. Send us, email us. As you can see, that there, the ability to do that, and or contact us, or contact me directly, or Doctor, and we'll be more than happy to respond. And Doctor will have the answers. I know Doctor has the answers for everything.
Doctor's got the answers as far as he's learnt these things in science, but like everybody else, Hurricane, I'm going through life, making my mistakes, doing the best that I can, and trying to enjoy it in the process. So we all share our humanity in that, Hurricane, But it's an honor to be here with you every month doing this.
Well, the honor is mine, and listen, I love this, and thank you so much. First of all, I would say for your trust, for really, being. And by the way, Dr. Heim and his partner in life and business, Dr. Colin Heim, they do have a show, the Resilient Relationships show. That's on the radio, so do catch that one as well. I think it's once a month now on Fridays. So again, stay tuned for that one, or you can look it up on the listen to it on the radio live at 9 p.m. on those Fridays, as well as on the podcast, whatever we're playing, and that's almost everywhere. So you can't miss them, and great stuff. So if you want something about relationships, that's the show. If you want something about mental health and feeling better, this one is. And I think both of them I mean, listen, it's a win-win. You can't lose with this. So thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us today. And I know we exceeded the time, but it was worth every second or split of it. And again, love the view. Welcome back to Sydney after a world tour, and hopefully are you still coming to the States in the near future? Because
we'll do that. We're just going to plan things a bit more the next time, Hurricane. So yeah,
all right.
But we're still interested in doing it all. Yeah.
All right, so when you come in, we might have a live from New York, so hey, stay tuned for that one too. So when we confirm it, we'll actually post it so people know. Maybe we'll do it a live where you can attend. I don't know. Maybe we can figure out a way to do that too. So hey,
We'll figure that one out.
It's season 5. We gotta have to evolve this to the next level. So let's see.
Okay, we'll do that then, Hurricane.
All right. Thank you. All right, folks, this is the end. Hopefully you've enjoyed the discussion, and for folks that send us the questions, thank you so much for the questions. Very powerful stuff. And Doctor, thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you so much, Hurricane.
All right. This is it, folks. We'll be seeing you next month. Bye for now.